Welcome once again to Tea and Stuff. I'm here with Hoyum Tea, all the way from Israel. Very, very far from me, and I really only know a few people. I have a couple like really like solid customers from your country, but other than that, I don't get to talk to a lot of people. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and tell just a little bit about your company and do an intro.
Okay. So thank you for Unytea, Jeff, invite us for this podcast. We're very excited to be a part of it. First of all, we're Hoyum Tea, tea company in Israel. Actually, it's the first Chinese tea company that serves kombucha in Israel. And my name is Ping. I'm originally born and raised in Hong Kong, and Nadi is also from Israel. And we are a couple, and we have been doing this for almost 4 years.
5 years. This is the fifth year.
The fifth year, and yeah, we're spreading the tea culture in Israel.
So, I mean, I know obviously you have your online store, but you also have a space. Tell me a bit about your space. And by the way, I'm going to be drinking 2 of your guys' teas during this. So I'll obviously provide links for all that. This one is the Xiao Tie Guan Yen.
Mm-hmm.
I do not get to drink enough of this tea, except for when I'm sampling, and it's always a toss up as to whether to be good or not. So I'm super excited to try your guys' teas. So if I'm talking about teas, or if I'm going ooh and I'm talking about something specific, know that I'm drinking these guys' tea. Paying compliments. So yeah, so you guys have a pretty unique tea space that you kind of teach / serve in. What's that setup like?
True. It's actually I mean, we didn't intend to do it in the first place. It just happens. Someday we realized that that we need a space in order for people to not only taste the tea before they buy, but also have the experience of how the tea is consumed in China, and maybe have some kind of reference of how the taste and texture and the whole profile of the tea should be like, because the easiest thing just to buy the tea and follow instructions, but it's another thing to really have the experience one time how the tea should be. And that's where it came from. And the first 2 years we were hosting at our place, just in our home, the same way we did before we created this brand. And this winter we were privileged to finally host outside our own home, in a dedicated place that, believe it or not, it was designed and handmade by wood for more than 2 years by my friend, that has a vision that on the second floor of this wood house, I want you guys to serve your tea. It was 2019.
For people that haven't seen your space, it is so cool. I didn't know that, but as you say that it was built, you guys had it built for this purpose, it very much looks like that. Or else you were the luckiest, you were looking for a spot, you know what I mean? And you just came across a spot that was so, it's this beautiful, it almost looks like a raised ceiling kind of attic. It's not a cramped attic. It's just a warm space. So it's literally perfect for serving tea. And you kind of like said some things I completely agree with, is that gong fu, I can tell people what I'm doing. I can tell people why I'm doing it. And, this is a Gai Guan and but the truly best way to get somebody to understand it is literally just to sit them down and just brew it for them. Like
Totally
I
agree.
have some people I've met up with recently that, you know, have been like, oh, I'm really into tea, but I don't know this type. And they're like, you know, tell me more about how you brew. And I tell it, and they get the concepts, but still there's sort of like a, okay, that's a cool way to brew, but you know, um, is this something that really would pertain to me? But if you sit down, you brew it for them, and they see how much leaf you're putting in. They see you're not adding any extra ingredients. They see you pour the water in. They see how long until you pour it out. And they watch all of that happen. And then when they see that performed and then they taste the cup and it's an impressive taste, they're like, whoa, like that came from just a 20-30 second infusion. And for a lot of people, like just that little realization is enough to really get somebody into this type of tea.
You said it so
Wow, it's so
so
beautiful.
precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why like after Hoyum tea, our brain name says as tea should be, and this is exactly what it's supposed to be. Like
Yeah.
drink tea together and enjoy the company,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. That's nothing.
Mhm.
A lot of nothing complicated involved. It just enjoy the time and to stay away the busy life a little bit and just
Mm-hmm.
connect people together.
I love the florals of this Tia Guan Yan.
My
It's like kind
favorite.
of it's like orchid. It's got like a little bit of rose note. It's just
Agree.
it's really floral, but it doesn't go to that because it sometimes when Tia Guan Yan are really floral, it can push into sort of a dry character. This has a really, really smooth character to it. Really full, like especially on this first steep, really full flavored, really aromatic. But it hasn't. Sometimes when you get that on the first steep, you worry that too much has been extracted, and then you're going to get more roughness and stuff. But this one's a very, very nice balanced infusion. I love this. When we first talked about trading teas, because you guys, you know, wanted to sort of try, you know, a lot of people consider my specialty, which is some of my Taiwanese teas. And you guys like really have a lot of these Fujian, just absolutely beautiful teas that yes, I have producers that work in those areas, but they're not, I don't typically end up buying the tea. Like you know, I like them. They're not poor farmers. They're good producers. But when I drink it, it's good maybe, but there's not anything that I'm like remembering about it. So when you guys were like, this is what we specialize in, that's when it was like, oh, then we definitely need to do a trade. And right off the bat, like I'm saying, like this Tia Guan Yan already has like a floral note that's really, really signature. Like typically when I drink Tia Guan Yan, I get really, really yellowy florals.
Mhm.
This is just, it's like fruity florals. It's
Very green. Very
Yeah.
green. That's
Mhm.
the name. Xiao Qing. Qing
Yeah.
is the green. That's the
Actually,
grassiness.
yeah. Actually, it's the Jaguarian now you are drinking. It's one of the suppliers that we work with the longest time,
Mhm.
and actually, like it took us some time to find the right suppliers. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
said, it's
It's a supplier
yeah,
BC. It's like we are buying tea
yeah.
from him long before we started the business.
Mm,
And what I think one thing that really amazed us in the production of Tiaguanin, by the way, what you described about your experience with Fujian tea,
Mhm.
Pink and I can totally relate because
mm,
we're having the same thing with Taiwan. We every year we feel like our connections are enough, and we even 2 years ago we hired a worker in Taiwan to help us do the sourcing because we realized that again we won't be able to get there and do the sourcing ourselves. And again, even though we drank a lot of them,
mm.
we just maybe it's our luck or maybe it's just our 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 preference flavor, but it's just
It just didn't work out.
a year after year, it just doesn't. We don't find ourselves buying it.
I can see there being some legitimate reason why these are your normal teas. These are the textures and flavor profiles that you're really used to. It's not that a green oolong from Taiwan is like it's not like night and day different from this, but the types of textures, how they represent, like when they come up in the sip, what it excites, what it affects. I think these affect Tie Guan Yen, like Enchi. I feel like they stimulate your palate in a different way than Taiwanese does. It really isn't a better worse situation. I really feel like it's just
For sure.
you appreciate different things about them. So I suppose it could be possible, partly, you know what I mean, that because of what you're used to looking for and expecting and stuff
That's
like that.
what we are looking for.
If the Taiwanese terroir doesn't have a few of those aspects, which you know, it's not a perfect replica to Fujian oolong, Taiwanese oolong. They are very different, even though they, you know, can be seen as similar. But I think the other half of it, you hit it on the head. It's probably a mixture. Like I would say the more Taiwanese tea you drink, the more you'll get to know it. But ultimately, you know, it may be a tea that you don't end up carrying 8 million varieties of. It might be one that through your sourcing and through you know, you figure out what you like and don't like about Taiwanese tea, you may find that maybe just like one of them is really applicable to your store. And I mean, at first you're like, oh, that's a bummer because I'd like to carry so many more. But I mean, then doesn't that say a lot more about the one that you decided to carry? Because you went through all these other, you know, teas, and this is the only one that really stood out to you. So if I were a buyer, knowing that from your store, knowing that you guys weren't typically big Taiwanese oolong people, if all of a sudden one day one pops up, like it's going to pique my curiosity, because it's going to be like, huh, I wonder what about that tea made them finally, you know, be able to push the button on it. A lot of Taiwanese oolong is a lot of the stuff that's readily available is very consumer made. It's not bad at all, but like you said, it's not ultra impressive. It's sort of like exactly same, like you said, exact same thing as I'm saying with the Tie Guan Yen. Like you're tasting stuff, you're liking some of it. It's not a bad cup of tea, but you're, as a buyer, as somebody who's like procuring a collection, you're just like, under our name and my reputation, I don't feel that this tea meets the criteria. So, I mean, geez, advice would just be keep drinking and try all different types of Taiwanese tea. Like there's, like, just with oolong itself, there's fresh oolong, which is unroasted, then light roast, medium roast, heavy roast, just oxidized plus roast. Like then there's, you know, kind of like red oolongs. There's just so much to taste. But if you taste that stuff and again you're still not ultimately wowed, I wouldn't beat yourself up too much. I never say no to a type of tea. But if you don't find one that wows you, like in how I like to do things, then why carry it then? You know?
Yeah.
Totally agree.
What do you, I mean, what's the closest, has there been a Taiwanese tea that you've been really close to carrying?
Yeah, a few times they just cost a lot of money.
Well, so that
it was in 4 digits
Yeah.
when it's like,
And also because we're so used to working with the Chinese suppliers, and you know, Taiwan, it's like another world to us, and the culture is different, the language is different,
yeah,
and the export import, everything is different. And
Yep.
it also takes us some time to really understand how things
True.
works.
We're not gonna bring one Taiwanese tea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I mean, technically, it's.
And building the relationship with
Sure.
the suppliers is also it's not easy, and
Mhm.
especially even though we're Chinese and so we speak Mandarin, it doesn't mean like we can immediately work out together. It's
The
it-
better
yeah.
you brought up a super valid point in that
Mhm.
this is something that I forget, is that I spent years before I even thought of opening a store buying from these producers and building these relationships
Likewise,
and
Yes.
building trust. And you never know, there are producers that talk. So you may have a producer that's really fond of you and thinks that you do a great job selling their tea. They may talk to someone else
Yeah.
and someone
I-
else of their caliber, and they may suggest people to you. They may so not only do you get to know that specific producer better, but the producers are gonna you're gonna be building credit with them
I
as
think it's
well.
so important, like especially for tea lovers, like people that consume tea. The only thing they care, it's like the price and the quality of the tea. It's
Hmm.
just that. But as a tea seller like us, uh, there there are a lot of work in the best stage, and it takes years
Yeah.
to build. And
Once the tea is
Yeah.
good, you just start working. I mean,
Yeah.
first you need to, because we're drinking a lot of tea from a lot of suppliers before we even test it,
Mhm.
sometimes before we even meet the people, because now it's COVID. And
Hmm.
but
Yeah. And another thing it's quite tricky is that even though you start working with these suppliers and you like his tea, and maybe next year the tea is not the same anymore, like the quality can change to
for sure,
yeah,
the
it's
quality never
Yep.
repeats.
yeah.
and
Never repeats.
and there's weird things that affect that, not just weather. So Chilai Mountain in Taiwan is, there aren't a ton of producers on the mountain. It's somewhat an unknown production area. It's not ultra popular, but I've been drinking from it for years and I love it. I love it. There's so much energy in it. But I don't know, maybe 4 years ago or so, I was buying from the same producer, and just that last year, a bunch of other vendors started selling tea from that mountain. So customers became aware of it, and an increase in demand, you can tell, was put on these producers. So this
Same
next
story.
year, they went to not necessarily, they didn't want to hurt their quality, but they really wanted to push the quantity they were doing. And the tea lost what made it special. So I ended up not working with that producer anymore, just because the tea didn't have the
Yeah.
magic thing that I liked about that
Yeah,
area.
yeah. When it's overpacked, we're having the same thing gradually with our green tea. 3 years ago,
Mhm.
it was like so supreme. We're like, it was so hard to decide. And since then, um, it comes early spring, we're usually still in Israel. And we're like tasting the samples of green tea blindly, like blind tasting with
Mhm.
our clients in tea room. And it's fun. Like, people can literally come to a tea ceremony and choose their future tea. And this year it was so embarrassing.
Oh
We received the
no.
first the first plaque, like, insane prices. You
Yeah.
sit down with people, four different Maofeng, Guanshan Maofeng, and it like, hands down, nobody is going to buy this tea, including us. And we had to head another round. Now, when I'm saying embarrassing, of course, I mean, it's not really 100% embarrassing, because
Yeah.
that's the industry, and that's, I mean,
It's
but
just not where you, it's not the, it doesn't, it's not on the scale of impressiveness that you have for teas that you
yeah,
drink. And
Yeah, and it's amazing how always when a place when an area become popular and more sources are targeting it. It's amazing how the quality is going down in parallel with the prices going up. It's just
The other thing that you said that rings really true about Taiwanese tea is that it's very expensive. Like even the good stuff is expensive. But so it's an act of faith, kind of. You got to know your customers. You have to judge yourself in how you judge quality. But ultimately, I mean, and you could pick a tea that you truly are like, ooh, this is my pinnacle of what a Taiwanese tea can be. Your customers could taste it and could not be their taste at all. And they could completely disagree with you on it. And then you've then spent a lot of money, and now you have this tea that people aren't jazzed with, which makes you a little less excited about it, or at least disappointed. And that probably reflects in the future when you are sampling it for people. You may not have the same spirit to you to deliver it. So it's just overall, it probably won't do that great. It's tough. But again, there are situations, not every situation, but sometimes the more you work with a producer, like Taiwanese producers, I think like to watch you. Like a lot of them will like send me samples and then they'll hover on my social media and they'll watch me. They'll watch how I talk. They'll watch how I present things. And then sometimes maybe like so then let's say I decide to buy the tea. Sometimes the next year, if you then go to buy from the producer again, you get a different pricing.
Wow.
Like sometimes not a ton, but I've had a couple where off the bat you pay one price almost as like an introductory, like you're starting the relationship, and then the next year it's not like wildly different or way lower, but it usually knocks enough money off where you're like, oh, okay, that makes it a little more attractive.
So we're lucky. I mean, our suppliers that doesn't have the opportunity to follow us too much on social media.
First of all,
lucky us.
They're sneaky. I'll tell you, they're sneaky.
Well,
Sometimes it's happened before with producers that don't have like accounts. So they don't have like a business account for their tea production. They'll go on like a personal account and watch me through there. I'm telling you,
Wow.
I
what
have
is
been
there to hide? What I mean, what are they trying to guess how much you
a
charge?
lot of producers that produce really, really high end tea are big with intention. They're really big on like who's drinking the tea, how it's being drank, how it's being represented. And if you're paying what they feel to be proper homage to the hard work and the tea they've made, then they want to work with you rather than just you approach them just to sell, just as a financial good exchange. It becomes more of a partnership for that person because they know you're on the same mission as them.
All right. In a way, I can understand. I mean, it's.
I can honor. It's tricky and it's weird, and not everybody does it, so it's not like a solid rule. But it's just, I think, depending on who it is and the reasoning that they're doing it.
Yeah, and
sometimes it's honorable. Sometimes, because like you should. I mean, I do. I mean, honest. If we want to turn this around, I do this with producers. So when I first meet a producer and I start talking with them, I ask a lot of questions. A lot of questions. And typically if it's it's a good producer, they're going to answer every question. They're going to have an answer for almost every question. And the answer to the question will be very detailed. The other type of producer will just give you short answers. And if you ask too many questions and you've wasted too much of their time asking questions, they'll just basically give you, okay, here's your price list, bye.
This one I can really relate.
We can really relate,
Right?
really, and we don't even have one single producer that that at some point didn't have enough of us, of our question, because what to do? We need. I mean, I mean, we just. Not, I mean, it's not a supermarket. We need this information, and if we can't come to China, we need this footage, and the serious suppliers understand that it's not only their obligation, it's their interest.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Their interest is to deliver the tea, and it's true, the suppliers that doesn't have the patience or the time to answer these questions and answer in length and
Yeah.
professionally, they are no longer
Mm.
supplying tea for us, because we cannot just serve people's tea and not be able to tell our experience or give the proper information. That's
A producer should
there is basic.
also a big question I'll do to weed out bad producers is I'll ask them what their personal favorite tea is that they produce. And sometimes they're confused by that question, and I'll say, "Okay, what tea do you make you're most proud of? Which
Mhm.
one do you make and you are just like, I would serve this to anybody any day and say this is my tea." Um, if they either just say the most expensive tea and then move on, or they don't have an answer and they just say it's all good tea, that for me is a huge red flag.
Mhm.
Huge red flag. Like when I ask a producer that, I really want to hear that they have a favorite tea and why it's their
Mhm.
favorite tea of what they make. And then the other good thing about that is that that's an indicator then that when you sample from that producer, if you sample from that producer, you'll know to try that one maybe first, because you're like, this is the pride from this producer, so this is probably going to be a very good representation of their work.
I can totally agree. I mean,
It's a lot of brain games.
mhm.
For sure.
Actually, I can spoil a little bit. Uh, Most of our suppliers, we are not meant to work together in the first place. Like we are just randomly met in China in the tea region,
Mhm.
and somehow from food friends or food,
Yeah.
even on the street, and we just met each other, and I think maybe that's why, and we can connect these people at the first place, because who will host a foreigner like from the middle of the street and just come to drink tea?
Yeah.
It's purely just hospitality from them,
Yeah.
and they're just share what they have, what they're good or proud of to
Yeah.
share with you. It's just the purpose is just so pure, and
Yeah.
nobody will expect that, a foreigners can just come and say, I want to work with you and I want to export tea to Israel.
Yeah.
It's
Being a foreigner in
yeah.
China can be can have advantages as well.
Yeah.
It's like
Mhm.
I'm not gonna take some credit here, because most of the job in China, of course, Pink is doing. But there is one very obvious
Mm.
thing in common between all our suppliers. Um, they like me. They like us to have their tea and sell it abroad.
Yep.
Otherwise we're just another supplier. And like Pink said, it can be the most bizarre story of how we met some of the suppliers.
Yeah.
Of course, we forget the ones with the lower quality of tea, or people that were less honest, and maybe we forget. So we call it sometimes luck, but
We're the same.
I believe that the ends justifies the means. It's really
Yeah.
not that important. What important is, like we said earlier, once the tea is good, once you have the connection, then you can move on. And there is no what is a proper place to meet a real tea supplier anyway. I mean, you don't make deals, hopefully, in tea exhibitions in China. Everybody knows it's not a place to do business.
Right.
It's a place for to see what's trending. It's maybe a place to try to understand what is the limit of the budget you should have. A lot of things you can get from it, but there is no proper place to meet these suppliers. Sometimes you go on a mission to a very distant area. Took you 3 days just to arrive there. You're exhausted, and you start knocking on doors, and
It can be nothing.
yeah, it happens.
Yep, we have. Let's just. It's the exact same thing with me. Is that people, producers? I have a lot of producers that have found me, and they've contact like our our Alisan white, our Cultivar 21 white tea producer that's on Alisan. They found me trying to find U.S. gong fu tea businesses, like followed me, watched all my stuff, watched all the meetings that I would have, just like your guys, where I would just set up and people could come and sip gong fu and ask questions. And they saw my dedication to that. And they were like, I want to reach out to this guy and I want to see if he's interested in carrying our tea, because, he's going to not only carry it, but he's going to be telling these people how hard we worked on it and tell them what to appreciate about it. They're like, that's very valuable to us.
Yeah, I really, really agree. And especially now I realize that actually in this industry, because tea itself, it's just so ancient and it has so much history. And people like pass it from generation and generation. And most of the tea suppliers that we work or like in the industry itself, it's mostly family business. And
Yeah.
and in this, like, I also see that maybe it's just because of the family business, in a way that people are more straightforward, or like they don't play games because it's just so open. The information is so open. If you don't work with with us, you can just easily find someone else. So I think the fact that people work in the family business, it also helps us to connect each other better, instead of the mass production.
Yep. I've switched on to the dansong, and I don't even know how to describe the aroma.
Oh no,
Like,
it's not
It's not
dancing.
dancong.
Wait,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have to pour some hot water to drink ours. Which
I'm
one
sorry.
you want?
I want Bai Gui Guan.
Bai Gui Xiang, be right back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yancha, right?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
My
It's
bad.
rocky. Yes. It's
Dude, it's so complex. The aroma it's strong but not too strong. But typically when you get aromas that are this strong, you'll get just that main strong note, and then that's really all you're going to remember. It'll be that bold spike of scent, but that there won't be anything following it. This has got a bunch of stuff with, I mean, it's woody, it's fruity,
yeah.
it's earthy, it's floral. I can literally just keep naming aromas and flavors. Like, this is one of those cool teas that when you drink it or smell it, you could, say you do 12 steeps of it. Every steep, every sip, you're going to be discovering something very slightly different.
Exactly.
This is they're both very impressive teas.
Thank you.
I'll give a quick summary on the Tia Guan Yen. I mean, it had such a good amount, and I liked the specific flavors within. I like its creamy kind of yolkiness. I liked the texture. The finish was nice. It didn't have the dry pinch in the back of the throat, which I get with a lot of greener Tia Guan Yen. But again, not only was there flavor, was there texture, the whole tasting experience was super pleasant. Like, the tea didn't feel too light. It had a nice weighted feel in the mouth. It really, really nice. And these leaves, they plumped. I mean, they're completely overflowing.
Yeah.
And I didn't, you can tell also that this has a lot, many more steeps in it. Like
Thank
you
so
can,
much. It is.
by the flavor and the body, like you can tell that it's far from fully extracted. And then this one, like I said, I'm just kind of flabbergasted. If I were to try to like sum up this tea, like say I was you guys and I wanted to carry this and I was trying to write tasting notes for the website, I don't know what I'd do. I don't know if I'd just say there's a lot of different flavors or if I would try to list them all. Cause like, this is there's so much depth and very different flavors.
Yeah. And it's something that I hate and love at the same time to describe tasting notes, because I can drink the same tea tomorrow and it's like what I was talking about yesterday. It can be a totally different experience. And also, I think describing references to tasting notes sometimes can also narrow things down instead of opening the mind. It's like,
yeah, you don't want to tell them it's like telling someone the end of a book before you read it.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like
And
it can ruin the experience.
yeah, and you expect them to feel the same. It's not even to feel the same taste. You expect them to describe what they're experiencing the same way as you. And I can tell you, as a person that spent the past 7 years next to a person that is an alien for the place that I grew up in, and it's sometimes you taste the same thing, but you have different references and different history in order to, different vocabulary to describe it.
Yep.
You know what? Actually, I have something to say about this. I think the most interesting part is that, three of us are from a totally different cultural background, and the way we understand food, it's so different. It's so deeply rooted in our country, and that makes this tasting note even more interesting because like you said, maybe like earthy or this kind of wordings, we don't talk about it in Chinese. Like we have our terms to describe this tea.
Green bean. I love the green bean. I mean,
like-
who's talking about
yeah,
green bean here?
yeah,
Who's cooking green beans?
Yeah,
I smell green bean.
like in Chinese, we hardly like relate other food to this tea. We are more like describe the aroma with the flower, the scenery,
You guys will say it's good. You guys will say like you don't get so poetic with it. Like you don't.
We would never put words inside other people's mouth, and only like give a direction.
The Western market really demands there to be some sort of, I want to know what to expect when I drink this tea. So I knew I had to do that. You know what I mean? But that's why in all my live sessions, whenever I, do meetups with people and I teach them about this, I stress that I'm just like, it will be different for everyone. I'm telling you my tasting notes because I'm just trying to inspire you to find your own tasting notes. I'm telling you what I'm experiencing. I do not expect you to experience this. I'm just giving you my personal impressions. But it's so important to stress to people that everyone will have a different experience, and you'll have a different experience if you have this tea today than if you have it tomorrow. They're gonna be two completely different sessions.
And that's what we like about it, because it's so flexible and there's no right and wrong. And it's so personal and subjective. So
it is annoying though. And sometimes like with a tea like this, it's a very prime example. If I had sourced, if one of my producers had this and I tasted it and decided to sell it, how would I mean, I would probably just, instead of even doing the normal like tasting notes on the site, I would just probably give a sentence or so about the characteristic. Like I would just say how multifaceted it is, and I wouldn't be able to say specifically this tastes like strawberries, this tastes like this tea very specifically is very hard to narrow down.
Very
like
hard.
that.
I think Yancha in general, it would be shallow to give it this kind of grocery list description. Specifically Yancha, also Dansong, they just can be so complex, and the experience can vary from every time that you're drinking it, and also I feel like I think you mentioned it. It's a more modernized way to look at tea, to experience tea. I'm absolutely sure it comes from wine and it's fine.
100%, 100%. That's where it comes from.
And even on Facebook, you always have like sometimes you see all the foreigners like us talking about something, and then some Chinese person come up with a comment. Guys, come on, it's just tea. It's good. We're drinking it. We're enjoying it. In China, we just drink tea.
Right.
That's how I handle anytime in a live session, because people are always like, oh, how do you handle when people come in and they start to get argumentative? I just don't entertain it. I keep stressing, guys, we are literally all on the exact same team here. 110%. We're all here to just talk and drink about tea, and you can play the devil's advocate in a conversation and see where it goes. But you have to be respectful, just as you would expect someone else would respect your opinion. Like there's this weird belief right now that if you have opposing views, then you have to fight. You have to go head and head because you believe this and you believe this. So we're both trains heading on this track, but we're both going to collide. And it's like, it does not have to be like that. That's just one way of viewing it.
I found it very interesting that like your experience about hosting tea and what people interest about, when they drink tea, and compared to Chinese, like just you said, last week we had the tea session with the Chinese people. It's been a while. I haven't speak Chinese.
Yeah.
And the content of the conversation is nothing to do about tea. This is very interesting. Yeah. We just talk about our life, what's happening here,
food, of course.
Yeah, food, how we enjoy life. And then tea is just like a companion, and we enjoy it. And then, this tea is nice. Move on. That's it.
Yeah.
It's very.
There was a 10 years old kid was choosing the tea. I always giving the options.
Yeah. And speaking of like when we drink tea with local people, people are so geeky. Like, where does tea come from? How old is this tea tree? What's the process of this tea? It's very interesting for me.
So we're at a weird spot because where we are in our tea world is we're having to teach people right now that all those details are important, which is true. But we're gonna end up having the same problem that you're having, though. Not problem, but people are all of a sudden, every time they drink a tea, they're gonna say, "What cultivar? what soil, what season, what's the amount percentage of oxidation, how many hours was this in roasting?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And then it'll get to a point sometimes where you got to just go, the details, like we can go on them forever. If someone really needs a detail, then you can be like, okay, at a separate time, I promise I'll research this and I'll find it for you. But right now, let's not get hung up on this detail. Let's just sip it and just enjoy it for what it is. Like, I can get like that too. I can get so, especially in spring, when it comes time to like sampling all the teas, I'll get so in my head about, is this one better than this one? Should I carry this one or should I carry this one? And sometimes I just have to like literally wipe my head and just sip it and shut off all those note searching thoughts. And I just have to literally just go, do I like this and why? And sometimes just breaking it down that simply again will give me the clarity that I was looking for.
Sure, and I also feel like that the one come up with the most data doesn't mean his tea is better, or doesn't mean tea that is attached to more information. For example, there are vendors that are writing down the day of the plucking. Now, people can watch this and say, whoa, whoa, it's super important. What are you talking about? March 2nd is totally different than March 3rd, but it's not the identity. It's not the identity of the tea. You were not there to pluck the tea. You don't know if it was raining or somebody had COVID that they couldn't pluck. These details are, I mean, there are details that are essential, and are some details are
They're
nice
extra
to have, and we never. For example, the date, I think it's like it's the extreme pickiness, but even though sometimes we are there in China preparing the tea by ourselves, we can tell the date and the hour, but why getting into it? Because once you put it there and the next year you are stuck in Israel in COVID, oh, you don't know the day anymore. It's just
shortly after I released the Meng Fei Sheng, shortly after I released that, I started getting, how old are these trees? And I go, my answer was, they're not new trees, but that the age doesn't, don't let that be the factor that's mattering to you right now. Like, please wipe that from your brain for at least right now. Just drink the tea. Drink the tea and then look at the facts afterwards. That's my, people are always surprised. That's how I taste teas. So I'll order tea from whether it's a producer I know or not. I see the name, okay, and I go, okay, that's the name. That's how they want me to steep it. All right. And then I'll start a live session and I'll just drink it. And people will go, what cultivar? What season is this one from? And I'll go, I don't know. But what price is it? I don't know. If I like it, then I'll contact, or I have questions, then I contact the producer and I say, oh, I was interested, how long was this roasted for? But those extreme details don't matter to me unless it's actually applicable. Otherwise, I mean, just the main things that are important really are where it comes from, about what season or what year it was produced. But and if there are basic questions about the tea's origin, I mean, those questions by a vendor should be able to be answered. But it's at one point it goes overboard, and you're just like, are we going to pick apart every tiny microscopic detail about this tea? I mean, we can, but again, you got to ask the question, why? Why are we sitting here racking our brains?
Sure.
Is it just
It's also interfere with the judgment when you need to make decisions, and it's just another spoiler before you watch the movie. It's just you can go and read the description on IMDb, or even watch the trailer. I didn't watch trailers of movies, I don't know, more than a decade, because I don't want to watch the trailer before. I just want to know who's the director, which year, and what's the length. So I'm not gonna wait out here. And these are the only three things matters. And in tea as well, we drink everything blindly, even to a point that you need to sit with clients and be embarrassed because the tea is bad. Only.
Yep.
Sometimes I do read the Chinese.
It's but you know what? I think I did that when I used to have my meetings before COVID too. If I got a new sample that I was trying to figure out whether the mass amount of people would like it, I'd bring it to my Sunday meeting and I'd brew it up as one of the teas and I'd sit there and I'd look at people and I'd go, "What do you think?" Just blindly. It's just
Yeah.
what do you guys think? And they'd be like, "Well, what do you think?" And I'll be like, haven't drank it yet. This is my first cup too." And I think that experience to a person who's like learning about tea, that's a super good experience to have with people like yourself that are going to help them through that situation.
Yeah. What do you think about the the geography of tea? I mean, I keep questioning myself. Of course, it's important that it's important. The terroir is super important. But I mean, even even in wine, I'm just thinking in wine. I don't go to the wine store and can you give me some Chianti? Some what's Chianti? Chianti can be $5, can be $500, and and I feel like sometimes with tea, vendors are I don't even know how to describe, like trying sometimes to bring tea from everywhere. I want to have one tea from there and one tea from, oh, Anshi tea. I have to bring tea from Anshi.
I
But
see what you mean.
what about the
I
tea?
I don't have a world domination plan with the teas I carry. I get what you're saying. Like, you need to carry from every terroir. Like as a store, you can't leave a country. I, I'm until I find a tea from a certain area to carry, it's just at a sampling phase. Like I have never had a Darjeeling in my store, and it's not that a Darjeeling will never be in my store. It's just that I have no reason right now to carry any. So it's not that I don't care about that area of the world, but as it comes to my store and what I'm doing, it takes a little bit of a back seat until it has a reason to matter more
Mhm.
so. I mean, I care about it and I always want to source like, any place that's making tea, I want to try it from there, but I don't have a need to carry the world. Like I don't have to represent the entire world. There's lots of tea vendors out there that specialize in different types of tea. Whatever I choose to carry or specialize in, I feel like that'll be enough for the people that come to me. It's how do you feel about it? I mean, it's tough because you don't want to. People often are like, "Oh, you don't carry Darjeeling, so you must not like it," and it's like,
Yeah.
no, not so.
I tell you what,
Yeah.
I mean, uh, there are a lot of sides to it. First, there is like the demand, or let's say the requests. People are more polite in the tea
Hmm.
industry. They are requesting. What about dancong? What about Taiwanese tea? What about Indian tea? We will be in 10 days. We will be in India, 11 days, and
Ooh.
and um, and of course we are going to try source tea the way the way we know, even though each place has its own rules. But also expectations are not that high because we know what we're looking for. You know, we know how we work. We know the budget. We know what we like, and but it's so, sometimes I'm quite confused. Sorry. So sometimes it makes me quite confused because people can come to tea room and feel like they're investigating us. Can you tell where the tea is from? Are you allowed? I'm like, what are you talking about? Can you say the name of the village? I'm like, yeah, I can tell you the house number. Well, what's the problem? Does it mean you can get it somewhere else? You cannot get it somewhere else. You know how much tea? Like people that see, I mean, it's just I just feel like the, the 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 geography where the tea comes from um, can be a good criteria of can be a good starting point of researching what, as a vendor, as a sourcer, or as a or as a consumer, to understand what you like better and what you're looking for. But it's definitely not a competition like to try to bring tea from all over the place. And
I felt that pressure when I started though. Like I felt, you know what I mean? Like I really felt like because I'm trying to be like I'm trying to help, bring some of this tea experience to people over here. You have that almost feeling like you're selling yourself and them short if you're not sourcing tea from an area. But again, if you're not sourcing good tea that you're proud of from that area, then you wouldn't really be representing it that well to the person. So uh,
we
it's
I think we always like serving the tea that we feel comfortable with. I think it's the most important thing for us. If we
yep.
don't believe that this tea, we don't think this tea is delicious, and we just simply don't serve it. And I think it also applies to like the way we drink tea first, like how we blind tasting, and without knowing any information about this tea.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most important part is just enjoy the tea, and what comes with like what information that
trust your
yeah,
senses.
and is an extra. Like of course, as a vendor, we it's good that we can offer more information as possible. But if it's like the plucking day, I think it's too much, and it's way extreme. And sometimes we just need to find the right point, when to where to give the enough information, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a constant battle, and it's a thing you have to.
Yeah.
You can't just. There's no one action you can make that makes up the decision for that. Like you'll have to.
Mhm.
There's times you'll have to teeter totter. You'll have to. There's times when the details will matter a little bit more, and there's going to be times when the details don't really matter at all. And you have to
Yeah.
decide when is the appropriate time to share that detail is there and that it matters. Yeah, I have that problem sometimes. You sit down with really new tea people and you want to tell them everything about the tea and all the things that make it unique, but you can't. You have to, especially if they're new to tea, you really have to just give a very brief guidance just to get them to sip it themselves
Yes.
and experience it for themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally agree. Yeah.
Well, we did reach our time. We cruised
Oh.
past it, and I was like, oh no, you can't stop. Keep going. I really very, very much enjoyed both of these teas. I'm lucky that I do have many other samples to still sample from you guys. I'm gonna put these two in the description when this comes out, because these are two, at least right now I can tell you, these are two I would definitely recommend.
Thank you.
So if you guys, what are your preferred ways to be contacted if someone wants to reach out or learn more or has questions for you?
I think Instagram is the best way.
Yeah, Instagram.
And by the way, we also have our podcast. And
Oh, that's right.
and yes, our channel. We just started like I think a month ago, and it's a podcast that we are more focused on talking something that related to the tea culture, like the Chinese medicine or Chinese art, or like
Ooh.
Zen Buddhas. And we will invite some our friends that expertise this field, and it will be fun to watch it. And
Yeah,
yeah,
also on
Where
YouTube. We're working
I
on
was
Mhm.
episode 3.
so you have it up on YouTube. Is it just on YouTube for now, or are you looking at others?
We also upload it on the Spotify
Apple.
and Apple Podcasts. Yes.
It's
Awesome.
available, yeah.
So good. Because sometimes I watch my podcast through YouTube, but a lot of people prefer to just listen to them. So that's why we ended up starting to put ours on Spotify as well, because everybody likes to enjoy things differently. But I want to wish you guys to continued healthiness, continued good health and happiness. And this is going to be an exciting year for tea. You just said you're heading over to India. You guys are going to, start exercising those sourcing muscles again. So I really think that for people that are customers, that they should be excited, because the past 2 years, I think all of us have managed to still put out really amazing tea. But once some people like you can get back over there and do the close connection, there's just more and more exciting stuff to come. So thank you guys. I want to do a last
Thanks for
cheers to
having
you.
us.
Thank you.
Cheers,
We'll
Jeff.
include links. We'll include links for podcast and everything like that.
Thank you so much.
So that it's easy for people to hop over and subscribe, like, comment, all the good stuff. So thank you guys. Cheers again. I know you don't have any tea, but I'll do it. Well, this has been Tea and Stuff, and we'll see you again.
Right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.